Wires are so funny, aren't they? They always find a way to tangle themselves up. There we go. Hello, and welcome aboard another episode of the Gallant Says podcast, available live at youtube.com/PaulGallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter at Gallant Says, Instagram at SportsGallant, and Facebook.com/PaulGallantSports. Monday and Thursday nights. Still working on an accurate time. Thought we would get this thing started at 6. We are starting at 7:12 Central Time. You can also catch it occasionally after major Houston sporting events. And after the fact, it's available wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud. If you ever have a question, gallantsays@gmail.com. Got this question from someone named Jess with an email subject: reply, saw it on the paper. Yo, Paul. It's Jess. I genuinely trust this email meets you well. To my surprise, name Paul appeared within a touching poem I came across. I would like to see this touching poem. This person did not include the touching poem. Blocked! Having ventured to over 27 countries, every destination gave its own unique story. Sounds like Brock Osweiler. Incidentally, I love taking photos, often trying to embrace the heart of each moment. It could seem a bit out of the blue, but do you consider the cosmos occasionally works in mysterious ways? No. I'm curious to know about any similar encounters you have had. Hope to hear from you. What the fuck is this person talking about? I want to see the poem. I don't know why this person's bragging about visiting 27 different countries. And I never think about the cosmos at all, because I don't want to think about how small and insignificant I am. Brent Desmuke comments, youtube.com/PaulGallant. What up, Paul? It is Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and I will tell you what is up on today's show. I'm going to see if, like Bobby Slowik, I could theoretically be distracted while trying to host a online live stream. And we're going to take a look at the coverage of a recent Houston scammer. First, though, I want to talk about an introductory press conference that we saw early today that comes on the heels of the Houston Astros shocking the shit out of me on Friday, cucking all warm and fuzzy moments of reflection on a surprisingly successful Texans season by signing Josh Hader, a reliever that they used to have in their farm system before trading him for Carlos Gomez and Mike Fiers. They bring him back into the fold 5 years and $95 million. And you'll love to see it. This is how a dynasty should operate, even if it's financially reckless. Do everything it possibly can to continue winning in the now. Now, I don't know how many of y'all saw Josh Hader's introductory press conference where the guy looked, I gotta say, like quite the hipster. And if you're watching along right now, I'm about to show it to you. But first, I gotta actually find the link to this video. And I don't know why it's taking so long for me to do it. But here we go. I need a producer. Anyone want to do it for absolutely free? Here is Josh Hader with video courtesy of KPRC's Chancellor Johnson. Look at this guy. He's got what seems to be a brown plaid suit. He's got a man bun or a top knot. I'm not sure what the difference is between the two. Doesn't look like he's got a belt on. Hey, you know what? Different strokes for different folks. He's got style. It's definitely hipster style, though. I do have a brown jacket. I feel like I look like a professor whenever I wear it. And he's got a brown suit. Different strokes for different folks. Tora McJohnson is commenting, the Astros signed Bill Hader? No one cares about the Astros for another 3 weeks. Correction, sir. We care about them now because they just cucked the shit out of the Houston Texans. Texans get blown out 34-10 on Saturday. The Astros spend a shit ton of money. And in that introductory press conference, Josh Hader says, this is a relationship that I believe is going to be longer than 5 years. Ooh. Now, I doubt that, but hey, he thinks it could be a relationship for life. We heard from Dana Brown at that press conference that the Astros decided to make a run at Hader last Tuesday, right after announcing that Kendall Graveman underwent season-ending shoulder surgery. I'll be honest. I don't know what's going to happen with Josh Hader. I expect him to be the closer. There was talk about how Ryan Presley was approached with the news of this deal. He is on board. He wants to do whatever it takes to help the team win, which likely means that Hader will end up being the closer while Presley gets moved into a different role. Will he succeed in that different role? I don't know, but having Brian Abreu, Josh Hader, and Ryan Presley is pretty damn good. And it's definitely better than what you had going into this year, which would have had probably Rafael Montero as one of those top 3 guys, which would involve hoping for him to go back to the guy that he was for much of the 2022 season, but for the most part during his career, like when I was covering him, Seattle wasn't that guy. And it also makes you feel better about Hector Neris asking for a lot of money, something like 3 years and $50 million on the open market. I know there are some that are going to look at what the Astros did, say they're being reckless by going into over the collective balance tax threshold. And I just strongly disagree. We should praise owners for throwing their money around wildly. We should. It means that they have balls and that they care about the local product. Perhaps at the expense of profits, which in baseball is what all these guys are about. And most of these owners are not forward-facing. They hide. They never address the media or anything like that. And Jim Crane, who clearly does not have as much money to work with as other organizations based off of all the big names that they have let walk over the years. George Springer, Carlos Correa, Garrett Cole, among others on a lesser level, like maybe a Charlie Morton. The Astros have never, or Justin Verlander, who of course they brought back. The Astros have never been scared to let people walk, but they might have been scared about paying big money for guys who are getting up there in age. So I think we should praise Jim Crane for throwing money around wildly here. And it does make me wonder if they're willing to go any further. Dana Brown is a bit of a politician whenever he's in front of a podium and loves to say things that make people excited and happy. It's a very, very different operating mode versus James Click, his predecessor, who basically never said shit. I think it definitely could get Dana Brown in trouble from time to time if he's promising things that don't get delivered on. But I think we should praise guys like Jim Crane who decide to spend like this. We should praise the Steve Cohens of the world with the Mets who spend big. We should praise the Padres ownership group for spending as well. Generosity shaming is what it is if you're like, oh, that's irresponsible. They're just signing the check. Bad signing shaming directed at front offices, that is fair, assuming you're directing it at baseball people. And maybe there was a time last year where the Astros didn't have enough traditional baseball people, scouts, an actual general manager in place. It was seemingly Jim Crane and Jeff Bagwell who were making a lot of those tough decisions over a couple of months stretch, which led to the signing of Jose Abreu and led to the extension of Rafael Montero and led to them re-signing Michael Brantley. None of those moves really worked out in the end, except for Abreu during the playoffs, but not during the regular season. So you can criticize those, but I'm not going to criticize this signing of Josh Hader. I think that it shows some balls by Jim Crane, who might be losing some money on this. For all we know, he's not. These multimillionaire to billionaires, they all make money and continue to make money for a reason because they don't usually take L's. But I think that Crane deserves credit, and I think that second-guessing the aggression here isn't something you should be doing because the Astros got to keep this thing rolling as long as they can. And as somebody who is a New England Patriots fan and saw them let Tom Brady walk away, eventually you let too many people walk. At a certain point, you just got to keep the success and the roster that you've had together as long as everyone's going to work out. And for a team that, was only a game from potentially missing the playoffs, this is also a team that was a game from making it to the World Series against the Diamondbacks team that they swept the last season of the series. And they probably would have won that World Series rather easily had they advanced. So I'm happy that Jim Crane's trying to keep this thing going forward. I have a couple of questions after this about the Astros, and we'll shift into talking about Bobby Slowik and the Houston Texans in a moment. I'm wondering if the Astros are done looking at importing expensive talent in free agency, seeing as they've already gone over the collective balance tax threshold. Would they do it again? I've also got questions about what this means for Alex Bregman's future. I think most of us expect him to walk after the year is done. Per Dana Brown, the Astros general manager, there have been no extension conversations. It makes me wonder about the future of Kyle Tucker, who is trending the same direction as Alex Bregman. Per Kyle Tucker, there have also been no extension conversations. And then Jose Altuve's future, per Dana Brown, no extension conversations. I don't see any way they pass on doing everything they can to keep him here forever. But we've seen Carlos Correa walk. We've seen Garrett Cole walk. I guess with Garrett Cole, it was only a couple of years. We've seen George Springer walk. You would think that they would bend over backwards, though, to keep Jose Altuve, who I believe is the greatest Astro of all time. Anyway, you could comment, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. You can also join on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gallant Says. On Twitter, @Gallant Says, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. Toro Rojo comments, I got my tromboner waxed today, or whatever they do with brass. Is that a penis joke? I Need a Bot says, tune in this Sunday to watch the ride continue. It's still football season, buddy. Is it? Not really. It's over. I have no reason to watch it the rest of the way. None. I'm assuming this person's from Baltimore. Toro Rojo asks, are the Astros top 4 in baseball? Sure. Work Dude comments, glad to see Jim Crane spending and Hader coming back. Yes. I agree. Now, as far as the Houston Texans are concerned, what are we? About Saturday to Sunday, Sunday to Monday. We're 48 hours removed from the Texans season coming to a 34-10 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. I think now that we're far removed, you can fairly point fingers and not do it in an angry and pissed off way. Certainly fair to point fingers as to the reasons the Texans did lose on Sunday, but I don't think you should do it with fire or brimstone after this past season. It's the first major disappointment. It's nothing to, I think, really get angry about. Disappointment, sure. Anger, no. I know some people today probably spent their radio show yelling about things that should have happened, like D'Amico Ryans challenging a ball spot or Bobby Slowik getting a little bit too cute on 2 Texans drives. I think the only anger that should be directed anywhere is anger directed at anyone who after this loss was saying same old Houston Texans, because that's just a crock of shit. This is a better team. They're heading in, you would think, a great direction. Now, I have said that I am a little bit wary of the fact that this could be the farthest that the Texans go, that this might be, for D'Amico Ryans, the furthest that they're able to dive into the playoffs. I think we all have to acknowledge that. I think, take a look at the Jaguars last year. Everyone was expecting massive improvement from last year to this year. We saw none. But it's totally fair, I think, at this moment in time to have big expectations for next year. I will say, though, that as someone who 100% just leaned into straight pandering that past week, because I was like, fuck it. Oh, I'm not going to pick against the Texans and piss off a bunch of people. Why would I do that? People aren't tuning into me because of my football expertise, even though I've got a lot of it. They're tuning in to be entertained. So I figured, fuck it. I'm just going to believe this week. Probably not going to do that again for next year. But you got to cut me some slack here. This season was like the first magical months of a relationship with somebody. And we're not even talking like a exclusive relationship. It's just fun. You're drunk off the nonstop boinking, assuming that there's nonstop boinking going on. Your perspective gets a little bit crazy after back-to-back incredible all-nighter Saturdays. The win against the Colts, the win against the Browns. They had some tricks that they brought to the table, doing some freaky-deaky, sexy stuff. And I'll admit that, yeah, I probably started saying some things and thinking things based off of those two nights instead of the full package and being somewhat realistic. So, with all that in mind, who deserves the most blame for what happened on Saturday? I know a lot of people are giving it to Bobby Slowik, the offensive coordinator of the Texans. And a problem for him all year has been, from time to time, getting a little bit cute with the offense. There were 2 plays where he did that. There was a play where the Texans were driving and they ran this weird middle of the field screen that was deflected by a Ravens defensive tackle, nearly intercepted. There was another play where they ran a double reverse toss back to C.J. Stroud to try and throw it downfield. It resulted in a loss of 5 yards. Not his best game. At the same time, what was he supposed to do? Not run the football at all. You got to try to run the football. Texans just haven't been able to do it all year. Some people were blaming him for that. Others are just going to look at a performance where the offense fails. They're going to think about the job interviews that he had with the Titans and the Panthers on Thursday, and the interviews with the Falcons and the Seahawks and the Commanders, and they think to themselves, oh, was he actually focused? And I understand why you might think, oh, well, I mean, his attention wasn't 100% on the Houston Texans. Yeah, he should have been 100% focused on the Houston Texans. Like, I get that line of thinking. I just disagree with it. I don't think that's the reason. These coaches work long, long hours, a 30-minute Zoom, hour-long Zoom with another team. I don't think that was going to affect his preparation for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'd argue that perhaps NFL teams should have to wait until the end of the playoffs and the Super Bowl to hire a head coach or a coordinator. It would, I think, help the NFL expand its timeline of operations so that there's some drama to talk about once the Super Bowl is done as far as coaching changes and coaching hires. But that's not the way that they want to go about doing things. And I suppose some teams are just going to, even if you do have it in stone where nothing can happen until after that moment in time, teams are going to try their hardest to interview the candidates that they like. Speaking of candidates, hilariously, the Tennessee Titans, who did already speak with Bobby Slowik, it seems that they are going to hire Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their next head coach. Talk about boring fucking hires. The son of Bill Callahan. And look, he might end up being good. He might end up being bad. I don't know. All I know is, like Mike Mularkey, like Mike Munchak, 2 of the Titans' previous 4 hires at head coach, along with Ken Wisenhunt and Mike Vrabel, only one of those names has, I think, produced a modicum of excitement for fans. Brian Callahan. The son of John Gruden's replacement in Oakland. All right. Good luck with that. But to bring it back to Bobby Slowik, I don't think Bobby Slowik deserves the majority of the blame for the Texans' loss on Saturday. I think more blame should be directed at the Texans' offensive line, which really struggled on the road. 5 total false starts, 2 by Laramie Tunsil. What a surprise. 1 by Shaq Mason, 1 by George Fant, 1 by Juice Scruggs. The only person who did not have a false start was center Michael Dieter. There was also a hold, and look, there were some limitations with this offensive line. Going into the year, you did not expect it to be in the playoffs. Laramie Tunsil, Juice Scruggs, Michael Dieter, Shaq Mason, and George Fant. You were hoping that Titus Howard would be your right tackle. You were hoping that at center it would be either Juice Scruggs or, I guess, Jaret Patterson or Scott Quessenberry, probably Quessenberry or Scruggs. Scruggs gets hurt. He doesn't get to play until the second half of the year. Patterson gets hurt before the start of the year. So you end up having to move. Kenyon Green gets hurt before the start of the year. You're expecting him to be your starting left guard. So you've been playing musical chairs on the offensive line all year long. The problem is you've invested a lot of money in the offensive line. I don't know how much better you're going to make it this coming season when you've already invested a ton in it. So I think the offensive line deserves a lot of blame here. But due to the injuries, I kind of get some of their struggles. Some comments here. Toro Rojo comments, twitch.tv/Gallant says, our wide receivers were hurt too. Right. I think that's another point in the favor of Bobby Slowik. Damian Pierce, a guy who was awesome for the Texans his rookie season, took a massive step back in Slowik's offense. That development also hurts the Houston Texans here. More blame. D'Amico Ryans has to be blamed. 11 penalties for 70 yards. The penalties have been a massive problem for the Texans all season long. And when you're playing a team like Baltimore on the road, you can't shoot yourself in the foot with big mistakes. They did it a lot. They've been doing it a lot the last couple of weeks. The game against the Browns was the cleanest game that we've seen from the Houston Texans when it comes to penalties. You got to blame the defensive line a little bit. I'm not going to blame them that much because I think they got tired as the game went on. 42 carries for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns allowed. They did have 3 sacks. At his post-season press conference today, D'Amico Ryans said, we're going to invest a ton of resources into the defensive line. If you want to play good defense, your front has to be elite. We'll see what they do on that front. But D'Amico deserves blame. And C.J. Stroud deserves some blame. Maybe the offensive line wasn't doing that great in protection. He still was not sacked at all during the game. He didn't throw an interception either. But there were moments that Troy Aikman correctly highlighted where C.J. Stroud missed open receivers. One time it was Nico Collins on a deep crosser over the middle of the field. You would think that next year he'll be better at going through his reads, his progressions, etc., especially after the awesome season that he had. And especially if he has Tank Dell back or perhaps some more help when it comes to the skill players around him. But he deserves some blame. But a lot of people are pinning it on Bobby Slowik, offensive coordinator of the Texans. And I do think that is somewhat unfair. More comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. On Twitter @GallantSays. Twitch.tv/Gallant says. Shout out to Texas Tags for the donation. Best damn Houston sports channel. I appreciate that. I doubt many people believe that, but hey, appreciate ya. King of all Twitches says the Texans had the remedial schedule, but the fans are pissed they lost to an elite team. Shows how stupid the fan base is. How many fans are pissed? I think most fans are disappointed, and some are directing the anger that they do have at Bobby Slowik for the job interviews, but I don't think there are that many people who are pissed that they lost to the elite team, because I think a lot of people just looked at what happened in that game and think to themselves, yeah, there's a massive talent gap. Zachary Styles on Twitter comments, Texans dynasty talk. The AFC South runs through Houston. I mean, it still does run through Houston. That is true. 100%. Toro McJohnson says the Jags remind me of the Dayton Triangles. I don't even know if that's real. He continues asking, Paul, how come you were never a fan of the Dayton Triangles? Is that like an offense from like the NFL in like the 1920s or something like that? Must be. Work Dude comments, the offense was putrid. Even with how awful the offense was, the game was tied at halftime. The Texans offense had a chance to adjust in the second half, but Slowik thoroughly was outcoached the entire game. I do think, though, that anything that he was doing, even with C.J. Stroud under center, just based off of how good the Ravens were up front, I think anything that he was doing was being, to an extent, done with rubber bands and bubblegum. He was MacGyvering his way through this thing. Frank Martinez would like to see Snoop Dogg as Texans offensive coordinator. They will fail every single drug test if that's the case. And Zachary Styles comments, says, we remember the 2023-2024 Houston Texans season. We will always have the punt return for a touchdown. What a moment. I mean, it was quite a moment. Now, while we're talking about Bobby Slowik, I figured, you know what would be fun? How about like I try while doing a show to fill out a job application? But I mean, for anyone who knows me, you know that there is no way in hell that I'm ever going to get, you know, a real job. Like I'm not qualified at all to get a real job. I'm just not. So what kind of job could I get? I could be a grocery store cashier or a front-end supervisor again. But I think anything that I do is going to involve me talking. I think it has to. And since I'm so damn sassy and often ask why things should be done, like I feel like the only thing that I could potentially do is get on a reality TV show. So how about this? How about I try to do a show and fill out a application to join The Bachelor? That's a reality TV show. Suppose this could also apply to The Bachelorette. So I'm at their website, bachelornation.com. Tell us about yourself. All right. I'm going to enter Paul Gallant. If I enter in too many details, it's going to autofill and you're going to be able to figure out where I am. But let's where I live. You might be able to take my social security. I don't want that. But okay, date of birth. We have to have them believing that I am young. Date of birth. We're going to say 1989 is the real date of birth, but we still want to seem young. So I'm going to dye my hair, right? I'm going to dye my scruff. I'm about to turn 35 in April. Let's seem like we're about to turn 29. So we're going to say April 11th, 1995. That is very weird to say. Gender, male, female, or non-binary. Listen, we want to make the show. We're going to say non-binary because we want to make the show. We got to set ourselves apart. Are they going to ask me, wait, Paul, you really identify as a male? Maybe I don't. I will identify as non-binary if it gets me on the show. Okay? We're trying to build the Paul Gallant brand up. Height. All right, well, it says on my license that I'm 6 feet tall. In reality, I'm about 5'11 and a half. So we're going to say, oh, wow, you can put that you're 1 inch tall. That would stand out. We're going to say that we're a good 6'4" because we got to. We got to. They're not going to bring me on the show if I say I'm 6 foot tall. They're not going to put me on the show if I say I'm 6'1". 6'4", baby. Wait. Which sounds yoked, but like not too yoked. We're going to say like 195. I'm 180 in real life, but listen, we're just trying to get on the show. People can lie to become famous and to get blue check marks, as you'll find out a little bit later on this show. Do I have children as I continue to fill out this bachelor application and impersonate Bobby Slowik, doing two things at once? Nope. None that I know of. Have you ever been married before? Nope. Occupation. What should I put for application? For occupation? How about... Former football player turned broadcaster / activist / journalist. Yeah, I like that. I'm a philanthropist. We could just shorten it to that. Zachary Styles says offshore fisherman. King of all Twitches says trust fund baby. Ooh, that one could work as well. Fisherman, trust fund manager instead of baby. More. All right, there's all my big information. What is the next big city near you and how far is it? Houston. Have you ever applied for The Bachelor or The Bachelorette online or via mail, email? I think I have. Look it up. Can't believe you didn't pick me. I wrote in the option, if yes, please tell us when. Can't believe you didn't pick me. Racism? There we go. Have you ever attended a Bachelor casting event? No. Why would you like to be on the show? Okay. I would like, well, hang on. Why would I like to be on the show? Clout and to jumpstart a career as an influencer. Well, that's why everybody does it. I don't know if I can do that. Everyone knows that that's really what's in the back of everybody's mind. Why would you like to be on the show? Well, let me just start by saying I'm a very emotionally available man. Some say I'm the most emotionally available man that there is. And in today's vapid culture, that emotional availability often scares people off. It's sad. Sometimes I wonder if I will be alone for the rest of my life. Sometimes I'm reminded of the depressing fact that I've never been told I love you by a significant other. Meanwhile, my mother, who once told me that I'm running out of options, wants to have a grandchild from her baby boy. I ain't gonna find that on the apps. I ain't gonna find a baby mama / wifey on the apps. They're too hard. So maybe that'll work. Also, I have a cat and people think that I'm gay because of that. But I just wanted to say that I'm not and that this application is proof. Boom. All right, I think we're good. I'm going to send that bad boy in. So there you go, everybody. I'm going to be on The Bachelor. I got to say, it's very, very difficult to host a show and do a job application at the same time. So now, after completing that exercise, I kind of understand why some people are frustrated with Bobby Slowik doing job interviews before and knowing that he was going to have a job interview after the Texans playoff game, how that maybe was a little bit distracting. One last topic that I want to add in. I want to talk about a little thing that we like to call journalism. I saw a tabloid story through Houston Reddit. And it's one of those stories where you're surprised that somebody actually did real journalism. Especially when the website that did this real journalism was the International Business Times. It's about a story that really proves that people will believe anything that they see online. So shout out to people like the IB Times that actually do journalism. A woman who went viral on social media after making claims a man assaulted her with a brick outside a Houston club is now accused of making up the story and raising tens of thousands of dollars in a GoFundMe scam. Rhoda Osman has been charged with felony theft by deception. According to charging documents obtained by Channel 2, Osman raised at least $40,000 through a fraudulent GoFundMe page that she started in September. This all started when she went live on Instagram after the alleged incident. I actually found a video of this on Instagram. This isn't the original video. Her account, and you can see it right here on the screen, Rhoda Osman, at @row_reports, 27,500 followers. She has a blue check mark. Another reason that I want to blow my brains out. I can't even get a blue check mark on Instagram, and somebody who allegedly committed fraud gets one. Tiffany Gomez, who basically committed airline terrorism, gets one. I can't get one. This is ridiculous. Anyway, let's take a look at the actual original video.
Yo, this man just hit me in my face with a brick, and all these black men just watch, and they don't give a Yeah, this man hit me, grabbed a rock, and he hit me in my face because I would have given him my number. And all y'all just watch. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? What do y'all do? I want y'all to be a man. I want y'all to be a man. Do something. Y'all gonna let a man hit me in my face?
Okay. So you see the video. Gotta say, face is definitely swolled up. She definitely looks like, despite being hit by a brick, as she claimed, like she would pass the concussion protocol. Seems pretty alert, able to successfully do a rant. Now, maybe there'd be a cut if you got hit in the head with a brick. There's swelling. Maybe the swelling's not from a brick. Maybe it's from an allergic reaction. I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I'm just throwing questions up because I have a hard time these days believing anything that I see, specifically on Instagram. There are so many parody videos out there these days. There are other videos where someone's just going on a rant and they're completely full of shit. I don't know what's going on here. So continuing to read this report that was put together by the International Business Times, here's a timeline of how her story fell apart to the point where now she is being charged with felony theft by deception. September 3rd, which is the night that she goes on this rant, Houston police officers respond to an aggravated assault incident. They meet her and her friend and reported that she was intoxicated, hostile, and irate. Yes, you could see that there. Osman told officers she had ordered an Uber. She believed the brick-throwing suspect was the Uber driver. Be really interesting to have a brick thrown at you from inside of an Uber. Maybe it happened on the outside of the Uber. But Osman said she got into the car with him, where he then tried to kidnap her. She stated the suspect was involved in human trafficking and had a large group of women in the car with him. So at face value, if you're a police officer and you do have to take a report and take account of everything that the person says, when somebody who's clearly intoxicated is saying things like, I got hit by a brick. Someone tried to kidnap me. The car may have been trafficking humans. You do have to respond to this and take it, I would imagine, a tad seriously. But as the accusations pile up, I can understand why there would be some suspicion on the police's front. And that suspicion continues as we go through the timeline. September 15th, detectives tried to reach her, but the number she provided was her friend's number. This friend was at the scene when the incident was reported. The friend said that she went out to several places to drink with Osman, that Osman called her male friends to come pick them up. Oh, nice friends. And when the men arrived, Osman and the friend got into the vehicle, which was a dark-colored sedan. She got into the front right passenger seat, while her friend, Osman, got in the back seat with another man. As they were driving, she reportedly heard Osman yell, "Ouch, why you hit me?" but stated she did not hear an argument before she heard Osman yell. The friend stated off the record that she did not believe Osman was hit with a brick, according to charging documents. The friend told detectives the suspect who allegedly assaulted Osman got out of their vehicle, got into another vehicle, and drove off. So something might have happened here. Someone left the car, but now we have a friend who didn't see the incident being asked about it and saying that off the record she doesn't believe that Osman was hit with a brick. And again, this is the International Business Times that's doing this report. On September 19th, this story changed because a detective finally made contact with Rhoda Osman. She said that she and her friend had gone club hopping. She, per these charging documents, when the dark-colored sedan pulled up, thought it was the Uber that she had called, got inside, and said that the suspect hit her in the face with a brick there. She stated and did her own investigation and found out it was a man named Olan Douglas who assaulted her. When Osman asked where her friend was at the time, she became upset and said her friend was far away from her while talking to another guy. Osman then changed her story to say she was assaulted at the Liquid Lounge Club. So, two different accounts here. Is she misremembering? Can she not keep her facts straight? I say facts in quotation marks. After more questioning from the Houston police detective, Osman became upset, asked to speak with the detective supervisor, and then hung up. And then on the 20th, there's video of this, and the video does not show any brick throwing or brick hitting. It does show Osman and this Douglas guy getting into the back seat, and Douglas, the guy, eventually leaving. It also showed Osman dancing on Douglas while her friend was in front of the vehicle talking to another unidentified man. So I don't know what happened, right? I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist. You would think that big journalism, a powerful media company, would perhaps swoop in here and do an investigation of their own. And yeah, NBC News did a report on this a couple of weeks later. I'm going to read a passage from it. In an exclusive report, an exclusive interview for the first time since the attack earlier this month, Osman told NBC News that she has suffered daily panic attacks and nightmares as a result of the online vitriol. Since reports of Osman's charge surfaced, the woman has taken to Instagram to maintain she was hit with a brick. Instead, she insists that platforms are striving to benefit off of black women's pain. She insisted external parties are trying to, quote, intimidate and silence her, end quote. I don't know how I'm going to support myself. I don't know how I'm going to graduate on time. I don't know how I'm going to, feel safe again. It's going to take months, maybe a year, maybe longer in my life to get it back together. I am an independent, strong, educated, successful black woman. That makes a lot of them just infuriated by my existence alone. That's a lot. For those who don't know, there's actually a page online at Texas grad students, which is, I guess, where Rhoda Osman goes. She's a Master of Science who went to Columbia University. Her interests are black feminist theory, ethnography, urban social movements, black diasporic studies, decolonial studies, cultural studies, race and gender studies. Okay. And her research follows Somali diasporic women in Minnesota and their activism work. Okay, so that's her account. Seems like she is a rather educated woman, and she's got a lot of hot takes about what took place in this alleged assault. So this NBC News report continues, and the only thing that we get in this NBC News report is that there was a police report filed on September 3rd, and there were hospital records that came out as well. There was a physical exam. Records indicate her left ear had blood coming out of the canal. The left side of her face was swollen with bruising and tenderness. So maybe there was actual contact made between this Douglas guy and her. I think the charging documents say that Douglas swung his right hand while holding what appeared to be a plastic water bottle, and Osman was hit in the face. But the NBC News story doesn't dig further to find something that was found online by the International Business Times and a bunch of TikTokers with far too much time on their hands. This is from the International Business Times. During the investigation, detectives said they received a call from Daphne Sutton, a mental health advocate and blogger on TikTok, who believed Osman was conducting a scam because of a similar situation that happened in Minneapolis in 2020. She provided detectives with another GoFundMe account that was created by or for Osman in 2020 with the same narrative of a, quote, black man hitting her, end quote. The description stated, quote, a young black Muslim single mother was viciously assaulted by private security in Minneapolis, sustaining multiple facial contusions, a black eye, and injuries to her leg. She needs an estimated $5,000 to pay for medical bills, legal fees, and a new phone, and more. The Minneapolis Police Department told the Houston Police Department that it has not received any reports of Osman being assaulted in 2020. The department stated that the last contact officers had with Osman was in 2012 for public lewdness and disorderly conduct. So that's on the internet. Some TikTokers found video evidence of her doing a similar rant to the video rant that I just played before that with a face bruise online. So the International Business Times finds this stuff. You would think that establishment media would be able to dig a little bit further. And in a report that they put out not too long after this event allegedly took place, that they would actually put together a report that has something of substance. Or, I don't know, that they would dig this up, which seems like it would be possible if you have multiple people that, you know, are supposed to be news reporters on the case. Instead, do you know what NBC did? NBC just brings up a bunch of studies that they clearly got straight from some random academia who had, I would imagine, little to no information about this actual case when they were asked about it. Brickgate points to a familiar pattern of backlash hurled at black women, writes this NBC article, when they publicly denounce harm from black men. And while it appeared to be an isolated act of violence, the back and forth from detractors and supporters of Osman represents long simmering tensions between black women and men that now play out on social media. The source of that continued tension, experts say, is unaddressed anguish from both black men who deal with rigid views of masculinity and black women who feel neglected in light of demeaning stereotypes pinned to them. Where the fuck are they getting this from? If you do a report on something like this, we're going to turn it into an academic study and try to bring a couple of random hot takes by academia as to why this happened? Why not how about we figure out what happened instead of just taking everything she says at face value? And I suppose you want to believe that she's making these accusations and that these accusations actually happened, right? Like, we all want to believe that. You want to believe somebody who's saying, yeah, I got hit in the face with a fucking brick. We all want to believe that, especially if you see the big shiner that she had on the side of her face. But instead of like doing digging and finding another GoFundMe that was probably posted by her, this NBC News story cites the color purple and continues to ask a bunch of random African-American studies professors about it. Mark Anthony Neal. Some black men are reluctant to acknowledge how their behavior may play a role in the trauma of black women. Black women's search for accountability after violence has occurred often gets misconstrued as attacks on the character of black men at large. Writes Neal in this interview with NBC. Again, NBC did this expanded study that gets way off topic of whether or not Rhoda Osman got hit in the face with a brick and whether or not this GoFundMe was legit. Turns out that it wasn't, because GoFundMe put a statement out saying that she's not allowed to use GoFundMe anymore, and she's clearly being charged with felony theft by deception. Neal writes, there's a generation of black men who, particularly in the post-Obama years, have not had the kind of life and professional success that they want. And sometimes they see black women promoted in certain kinds of ways. They're really in their feelings that as black men, they're being left behind. This disaffected block of black men may feel less convicted to stand up for black women. Neal said, again, what does this have to do with the original fucking story? How are we going so far down this rabbit hole? And this is not done. This is not done. I am shocked by how many random professors this NBC News story contacted, as opposed to doing more digging on what happened and what didn't happen, because that's what a journalist is supposed to do. Shaniqua Roach, assistant professor of Black Studies and Gender Studies at Brandeis, says, in cases where black women have been criticized for coming forward, they are treated less as victims and face scrutiny as if they are somehow at fault for the violence done against them. Brian Ellison, founder of the Black Man Project, an organization that provides group therapy for black male youth, said he believes misunderstanding between black men and women stems from unresolved past trauma. I feel that's where a lot of things get lost in translation. We're trying to compare the pain that we both feel. In reality, we are both hurt. Let's look at the fucking GoFundMes! More. Diane Stewart, the Samuel Candler Dobbs Professor of Religion and African American Studies at the Emory College of Arts and Sciences. That title does not roll off the tongue. She referred to a general observation about data showing that black men are twice as likely as black women to marry someone outside of the race, continuing saying there is a need for more feminist and womanist black men. American society, especially black men, do not listen to black women when we say, please don't harm us. Please don't participate in patriarchy. Please don't be sexist. But again, though, and again, I guess that you could have had this thesis out there had Rhoda Osman's claim through a court of law been found to be true. But instead of waiting for the facts, you turn this into a thesis that you would think you would see from somebody that is a graduate student. Where's the fucking news? This is NBC. Another one. I'm losing track of all the people who are weighing in on this. Somebody named Richardson in this article. For black men, social media acts as a forum where they can go to air their grievances about women. She cited online communities of men that create and share content grounded in misogyny. Social media, she added, has also generally been used as an instrument to spread hate and propaganda. Black women expressing their needs for protection are also looking for allyship and loyalty from black men, which they often don't perceive. Okay, but again, the International Business Times found another GoFundMe from this same woman, as did numerous TikTokers with far too much time on their hands. So if you're going to do an investigation into this woman's TikTok, she makes these accusations on Instagram. 1 million people see it, and she gets $42,000. When you see that much money that's on a GoFundMe, shouldn't you look for other similar GoFundMes and maybe take a look at her background? Because this happened in Minnesota. Guess what? On her website, Ms. Osman's research follows Somali diasporic women in Minnesota. Do a little more digging? And instead, NBC News turned this into some sort of fucking like thesis paper as opposed to just trying to figure out what the hell happened and what didn't. So I think that's crazy. Anyway, I'm rambling. That's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. You can join youtube.com/Paul Gallant. You can join on twitch.tv/Gallant Says. Taylor asks, what do you think is the main thing you learned from working at 710 ESPN Seattle? I learned that I need to work somewhere that lets me be myself. That's what I learned. I know that's going to sound pointed. There are some restrictions working at 710 ESPN Seattle that don't exist in other companies. I understand why. I'm very thankful for the time that I had there, that they gave me a shot. I wish it had lasted longer, but I'm also happy to be back here in Houston. So I hope that's a good answer for you. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap things up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, to this channel on YouTube. Like the video. You can do the same thing on Twitch or on Twitter. At Gallant Says. On Instagram. At Sports Gallant. Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. We will be back at it Thursday at, 6, 7 o'clock. It'll probably be a little shorter. I think I had too many topics on today's show, but we're always striving to improve on this. You ever have a question? GallantSays@gmail.com. So long. Farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Monday, and we'll be back at it on the radio tomorrow